Welcome. Welcome, John. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everybody that's joining us for the first in this three-part series of masculinity and mental health.
Awesome. Katie, it's wonderful to be here. It's a pleasure to be talking to you and your watchers, your listeners today.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. So for those of you that are, maybe catching this on Facebook, what we are doing this month as a Movember Foundation fundraiser is focusing on men's mental health. And really the purpose of this is to bring some awareness to some of the unique nuances when we're talking about mental health that maybe get avoided or swept under the rug when we talk about mental health in general, or we talk about mental health as a women's health issue. And I think it's really important that we create space like the Movember initiative has done to zero in on that man's experience in mental health, because so often I think it gets kind of pushed off to the side, or not necessarily it's time to talk about that. And so that is what we are doing today. So thank you, John, for participating in it.
Well, I'm super excited to be here. You're welcome.
So for those of you that have not met John is a personal trainer and studio owner of fitness studio here in Guelph. Owns the Fitness Junction and JM Training with his wife, Jana. And John, I just, when I've heard you speak before and when I've met with you, you have always been so personable in sharing your history with mental health. And because I know how much this is close to your heart because of your own journey, that is why I invited you tonight to come share, because for this topic is not abstract for you, it's personal. And I think that's really important and unique, right?
Yes.
And so I was wondering if, I want to talk about your work and where you are now, but I wondered if you could share a little bit about where you started and how you got to where you are today, a little bit of your story.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, yeah, as you said, I'm a personal trainer and lifestyle management specialist, and I'm an ex-athlete. So when I was younger, I used to be an athlete at a high level. Lost my way a little bit in my late teens, early 20s. Had a few dark years, didn't really understand what was happening to me. And back then we didn't really understand mental health. I mean, we're still trying to understand mental health now. That's why we're having this discussion, because it's something that isn't openly spoken about, especially when we talk about men, right? But so I didn't really realize what was happening to me. Just felt I had this dark cloud around me, pushing down on me. I'm sure a few people have felt that way as well. Anyway, long story short, it came to a head when I was around 26 years old. I ended up on Tower Bridge, and I was ready to take my life. I jumped, and someone saved me. And to this day, every day that I am here, I wake up, it's a present that someone else gave me. Now, at the time, I didn't think it was a present, because I was at the end of my rope, and I decided that that's what I was going to do. So that's when the recovery starts. That's when the self exploration starts, and where you have to try and realize why you are in this position, what's happened to you to this point, and to try and find a purpose. And through my years, after that, that's when the real work started, trying to work out why I was so sad and depressed, and also trying to work out what my purpose was. So I found, long story short, I found exercise again. And I'm very, very passionate about helping people to use exercise and nutrition and healthy strategies to overcome mental health and to be healthy. There's a lot more to the story than that, but in a nutshell, that's pretty much what happened to me, right? So someone saved my life, and now I'm here. My purpose is to help other people.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think I'm so intrigued by this concept of purpose, because I think that in itself is a preventative health and like wellness intervention, just, finding that purpose. And, I do want to focus on, the body tonight. We'll make sure to talk about, physical health and how that influences mental health. But I'm curious where you landed. Like, your journey of this purpose to end up in this place where you're like, no, my purpose is to help other people find this like healthy living. How was that discovered for you?
It's pretty crazy, actually. So during my healing or post-suicide attempt, I managed to finish my degree, and I knew I needed to spend some time away from London because I had some very bad habits, some very unhealthy habits. Needed to get away from the environment and try and heal myself. So I went to Thailand, and I was going to go to Thailand, Vietnam, Laos. I ended up falling in love with Thailand. And at the end of my trip in Thailand, I met this girl from South Africa who was a yoga teacher. We were on Koh Lanta, and we spent, I don't know, 2 weeks together. She was awesome. She was a yoga teacher. She just had this spiritual experience at a Buddhist retreat, like a monastery up in northern Thailand. And she heard a little bit about my story, and she's like, you need to go there. It's almost like she was an angel. I don't believe in God, but it's almost like I had to meet her. So I ended up going on this silent 14-day retreat where I fasted for the first time in my life. You weren't able to talk. You were taught by Buddhist monks how to meditate, and I was very bad. Like anybody that knew me back then, sitting still, not talking, that wasn't me. Like I was like, I've got a bit of ADD, to be honest. That's why I do what I do. Anyway, so 14 days, it was a challenge mentally and physically. And it was there that I realized that this is what I was going to do. I started to heal myself, put some ghosts to rest, and learn how to meditate. And it was a surreal experience, but it was there I realized that I was going to become a personal trainer. I started exercising again in my little bunker. I was sleeping on a wooden bed and wooden pillow and a concrete bed. It was crazy. And and that was a pivotal moment for me. And it was really, really powerful.
I mean, I'm momentarily speechless. Like it's the thing that like movies are written with screenplays of like, and then I went to Thailand and there was this serendipitous meeting, and then I went and I learned from the monks and I meditated. But I think what that tells me is one, like a little bit of surrender, a little bit of faith, and the beautiful practice of meditation that really does, I think, bring us closer to ourselves and reconnect us with who we truly are and what we are truly here to do. And to me, that's what I hear in your story there.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy that was a big partier. I was a DJ. Like I drank a lot. I used to self-medicate with a lot of drugs when I was younger. I went from that environment, right, to trying to heal myself. Yeah, okay, I was an athlete before, but I did lose my way, and I was self-medicating and, trying to heal myself in ways that you can't, right, but only ways that I knew how. And then you put me in a Buddhist retreat in Thailand, or you put me backpacking on my own. It was a crazy experience. Back then, Thailand wasn't so travel friendly, right? It was a big step for me, and I had anxiety, and I still had depression. I was still managing mental health, right? And it was just like a fish out of water. But like taking all of those things away, connection, everything out of your situation, and just being at one with yourself is such a crazy experience. It's such a healing experience, right? It can be all powerful, and it really was. I mean, there was lots of things that led to that, but it was one of those pivotal moments because you asked, right? So
yes, no, yeah. And always there's, the undercurrents and the things that led to you being in the place where, you could say yes to a different opportunity. You have to be the person that's ready to take that next step because you took the step before.
Yeah.
But that is really powerful. I'm curious. I want to go back and talk about your athletic career. And when you were an athlete, tell me, and you said, I kind of lost my way. I'm curious, like what did being an athlete mean to you? In terms
so you talk about, sorry, let me cut you off. You talk about purpose, right? When I was younger, I knew what my purpose was. I wanted to do good in school. I wasn't most academic, but I was hardworking. I wanted to be a good son. I wanted to look after my mum. I saw that as my purpose, right? She suffered from some serious mental health when I was younger, depression. But like as an athlete, that was my release. My purpose was to do my best, but also to get rid of that excess energy. I've always had a bit of ADD, like I said. So, and I think if that energy is not used for good, in somebody who most people need it, but like somebody who's been trained from a very young age and you stop training. So I gave up on my swimming career when we lost our house. We lost our house when I was 13 years old. I was swimming at a very, very high level. And shortly after that, I gave up, and I was looking at the Sydney Olympics. Like seriously, that was a real goal. And then I continued to play soccer, and I was playing at a high level, and I got a very, very bad injury, and that was also a pivotal moment for me too, because then I lost my my real purpose, which is, at the time, was school and being an athlete. But I wasn't, it was a bad injury, and I wasn't able to run, and I didn't have the confidence to get back on the pitch. So I think that, and going to university and having all of these external not such good, like drugs, alcohol, late nights, the opposite to what an athlete needs, right? All of the things, right? So I'm an all or nothing type of guy. I know that. I have an addictive personality. I'm all in or I'm all out, right? And over the course of the last, 10 years, I've worked out that it's a better balance than that, right? But when I was younger, I was very much like that. I was the party animal. I was up the latest, or I was in the pool longer, or on the pitch longer, practicing. Whatever I put my mind to, whether it was like positive or negative, it was all in, right? Which can be very, very powerful, very destructive, but also very positive, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. No, and I hear in you like a lot of self-knowledge and a lot of self-compassion, which I'm sure did not come easily, but it's so apparent in the way you talk about your story that like real healing work in terms of how you see that has been done. Because our focus of this talk series is on masculinity, I was wondering if you would be willing to share some about how, or if any of that athleticism you think was influenced by, your gender or your gender identity, and how that might have been a piece of that, or if you think it wasn't really relative.
Well, when you talk about masculinity and mental health, I think it's definitely something that needs to be spoken about. I think, you spoke about women's health, and you speak about women's health a lot, and you're doing an awesome job with that. And this is awesome as well. And I think dudes are more macho, right? We're meant to be strong, powerful. And I don't necessarily believe this, but this is what our internal belief system tells us, right? We're meant to protect. So we can't be vulnerable. We can't admit that we are weak, although it's powerful. It's really powerful to do that, right? So as a young guy, I think I was really using sport as a release for energy, but also maybe to prove to myself and my peers that I was, powerful, strong. I also got bullied when I was younger in school. So generally when you're good at sport, normally in a school, you don't get bullied, right? So like, I don't know, I really focused on, the things that I was good at, and tried to see that as a reward system for myself. But then when that's taken away, like you say, like, what do you have left? What did I have left? I was decent in school, but it was my release, right? So yeah, I think as males, we struggle to talk about what's happening, even if we don't understand it, right? And I think it's super powerful. It's super important that even if we don't know what's happening, because that tends to be the case with mental health and depression. I didn't know what was happening to me. Like, people around me were just staring at me like, you got a beautiful girlfriend, you're at university, you have a job, like you're working hard, you're doing all these things, yet like you're so down and depressed all the time, you're so erratic. I had no understanding of what was going on with me, right? But it's so important to be able to talk about it, right? It's so important to be able to say, hey, listen, I'm not okay. I don't know what's going on, because then we can get the help that we need, right?
Yeah, you touched on a few things there that I think are so important. The vulnerability that it takes to be able to acknowledge, one, that you're not sure what's going on, and I think there is, as individuals, perhaps we're not putting this pressure on men, but there's a societal pressure on men to be strong, and part of being strong is knowing what's going on. There's a lot, you think of movie tropes, and it's the woman who's like, what are we gonna do, right? We spend time talking about how that's detrimental to how we perceive women, but on the flip side, that's detrimental to men's mental health, because on the flip side, you've got this crisis, and who's supposed to know exactly what's going on and be able to say, oh, this is what we're supposed to do next. It's just as harmful on the other side of the coin, because it doesn't allow for, I need to figure this out, or I need help figuring this out.
When you spoke about compassion for yourself, I think as men, we don't have compassion. If we can't do something the first time, or we don't understand what's happening, it's almost like, I don't know whether you talk about this, but I've always talked about the internal voice that we have. Now, if your internal voice is screaming at you and shouting at you and swearing at you and belittling yourself because you didn't do that thing, or you don't understand what's going on, then there's no compassion there for yourself. You're not really going to find a solution, right? You're just going to be angry and upset with yourself. And it's a cycle. And I used to be very angry. I used to be angry with myself. I wasn't externally angry unless there were a couple of obviously occasions where I was outsidely angry, but not at anybody else in particular. But generally it's internalized, right? That anger is internalized and it's very destructive, right? So unless you're able to find that compassion and change the narrative, the voice that you're talking to yourself like you're a human being, it can be very destructive, and it can be just a vicious cycle, right?
Mm-hmm. How did that negative voice, do you think, develop?
Good question. I don't know. It's a very good question. I don't even know when it started. It probably started when I was bullied as a kid, because you probably internalize other people's voices, right? What other people have said to you. I used to wear glasses, so I used 4 eyes. I used to be a bigger dude. I was always different as a kid, different in the sense that I was older for my years. I stood up for things that people didn't normally stand up for, so I stood out. And in the schooling system that I was in London, you don't want to stand out. Like, kids aren't protected. So it was like a little bit of a vicious circle. I was taught to speak up and protect other people. But in the sense of doing that, it made me a target. Like, long term, honestly, it's much better. Like, I'm always been outspoken. I've always been very direct. But when you're younger, that's scary for kids, right? That's scary. Like, so I think I was just a little bit older than my years, and I think that voice may have started when I was being bullied. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it was a difficult question, and I didn't expect this is where it came from type of question. But I do think, and I honestly, I think it's getting better. But I do think that we don't teach boys from a young age emotional intelligence skills in terms of understanding their feelings, naming their feelings, and accepting their feelings. And that is really, in my opinion, foundational for like long-term emotional well-being and mental well-being, is just being able to name what's going on in your body, and allow that to exist. If you're just saying, oh, you're not allowed to be sad about things, or don't show anger, the only thing you can do is neutral. You've got all these feelings that are real. Where are they going? Like,
you put them in a box, right? They're in a box, and they're going to explode one day, right? They're all going to come out, right? And it's true. Very, very true.
Can we talk about self-compassion? Because you had this like negative talk, and I think that's so relatable, because I know it's so relatable, because I talk to so many people on a daily basis about their mental health, and this is a real big turning point. Is something that I ask in all of my assessments, is like, how is your relationship with yourself?
Right. It's powerful. It's very difficult to start the process, I think, if you're not used to being compassionate with yourself. I started it mid-20s when I was trying to find a solution for what ended up being a suicide attempt, which was a very real attempt for me, and then trying to make sense of that. And part of it was trying to understand who I was, and why I was there. But also, like, when you talk about compassion, just it's okay, right? It's okay to have done that. Like, deal with it, like, move forward. I think reflection and self-talk, so the way that I speak to myself, it's weird, but you speak to yourself, right? I spend a lot more time thinking before I react to a situation. When I was younger, I used to react all the time instead of responding. So like reflection, if something doesn't go well, if there's a situation that I feel like, I still get anxiety now, right? Like I'm not super anxious now, but I could be, it depends. So it's being okay with that, understanding that, you know, that's okay, right? And trying to work out why that happened and trying to work out strategies in order to preempt it happening. For example, before coming on this podcast today, I was feeling my anxiety build up, right? I have it, I know it's there, and I have to manage it. So I breathe, talk to myself, like pep talk, like I would before a race or something like that. And that's a sign of compassion, because otherwise, what would happen is I'd be like, the male part of me would want to take over. Come on, you've got this is ridiculous. You've done this so many times. Like, come on, like pull your socks up or swear at yourself. Like, come on, like what the hell? And that's just not going to help me, right? That sort of self-talk isn't going to help me. So finding that voice and that compassion for yourself and knowing that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to show vulnerability and to be vulnerable. As a man, it's actually apparently very attractive. I don't know. I'm not, but like it is. So women do find that attractive, right? So it's good, right? To be, my mum brought me up, so I've always been very sensitive, right? So yeah, so I think it's super important and super powerful, but I think we need to be taught how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we can teach ourselves, but I think someone needs to help us with that.
I think that's a fair assessment. It's like, where does that come from? And hopefully, we're learning that from I think when you think of some newer parenting styles, you think, if a parent's like, well regulated, they're hopefully teaching their child that inner dialogue. You hear a lot, what you're saying to your children become their own self voices, right?
Yeah.
But it's what they hear from all kinds of different places, right?
Yeah.
And I think you were talking about that with the bullying, you're hearing things that are like not kind, and that, can overwhelm, all the wonderful things that your mom was saying about you, that kind of piece, right? So
yeah,
it's just a good reminder for us to be gentle when we're talking to ourselves, and to practice that in any way we can. I think sometimes we think like, oh, I'm beating myself up. How can I speak? I can't just start speaking nicely overnight. And what I found, I mean, from a clinical perspective, is that it's not overnight, but that it can change. And then when you start stacking in these like little things that are helping along mindset, doing some meditation, doing some affirmations, and you pair that with work on the physical body, changing your nutrition, making sure you're getting sleep so that your brain is actually capable of being in that responding state, rather than the limbic activation of not enough sleep, just react to everything. And then of course, fitness, and, some of the ways that we are learning about how that can actually change our neural wiring and just create an environment where we are able to create new thinking patterns. I'm curious how exercise and fitness has, come into your recovery. You were talking about you're in Thailand and you were at the monastery and you're just like, I'm going to be a personal trainer. You're sort of like working out right there. I'm like picturing, there's probably like, you're still half fasting and you're like, nope, got to move my body.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was like it was a concrete, like back in the day, it was just these tree houses. But I think because more and more people wanted to do it, they built these bunkers. So you had like this little concrete bunker. And I'd go back there half an hour before we did a walking meditation, for example. And I'd go back there and I'd do sit-ups, push-ups, just anything, tricep dips, because it was my time, and I was finding myself again, because I'd lost myself, like really lost myself. And I had to come to terms with my suicide attempt. I had to come to terms with the fact that I'd put all my family through that, and I had a lot of guilt attached to it, as well as guilt for I don't even know who the guy who saved me, but I tried to hit him. Like, it was a terrible, terrible situation. So I had to put all that behind me. So yeah, exercise was super powerful. And it was like I lost it and I found it again. And it's and again, like when you're talking about having excess energy that can be used for good or for bad, destructive, if you're the type of person that's been training from a very young age, you take that away from somebody, and then you've got all this extra energy, like I said to you before. So yeah, like the serotonin release alone, I think was like it's like my drug now, right? Like I took antidepressants for a while because I had to, because nobody could put me into a box or label me, which was a good thing, because otherwise I would have been labeled, probably fulfilled the criteria of the label, because I've seen that happen to so many people. So for me, it was a good thing, even though I didn't want to take more drugs. But then I needed to find another way. So training for me was that, and finding that exercise, and then finding nutrition, being healthy was just, it was life-saving for me, absolutely life-saving. And that's why we do what we do every day, right? Because it can save lives and it can change lives. And it's as simple as just moving your body and fueling your body with whole foods. It sounds simple, but it really is. That can be the best, like, antidepressant, the best cure for anybody, right? And we truly believe in that, right? You talk about lifestyle, you talk about sleep. Yes, taking alcohol, toxins out of your body. Yeah, of course, all of those things too. But you can start so simple, right? Just moving your body. Me working out in that bunker just reconnected me with who I needed to be and what I needed to do in order to be healthy again, right? And then it was like, I need to show more people. I need to teach more people, right? Like it's that simple, really. So it's so powerful. And I know people are like, oh, exercise. I've heard it so many times, but no, like really, truly, exercise. you know.
Yeah, no, and it is like when you look at the research, there's this equivalence with SSRIs and exercise for mild mental health. And I am not, um, I'm always very careful because I never want to shame anyone for taking medication. They are life-saving drugs, and everyone has the right to make their own health decisions. So that is, I'm firmly in the camp of, if you're taking medication and they are working for you, all the power to you. And there are also other things that are helpful for mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I do, I work in complementary medicine, so I tend to see the folks where maybe traditional therapies or traditional medications are not working, like they're just not. And I am becoming less surprised every year at how powerful these so-called simple things of exercise and nutrition are for mental health. And truly, I think, I've witnessed the same type of thing that you're talking about, where it's these little changes that can be life-saving and
Mm.
life-changing,
Yeah.
because you don't have to start with a whole new diet and an intense exercise regime. I mean, I'm
Mm.
curious on your approach, but I would almost say don't start with a whole new thing. Work your way up to that.
Yeah.
So, do you want to share a little bit about your approach and sort of thinking from, if you're starting somewhere where you're not engaging, you're eating a lot of whatever or not eating a lot at all of anything, not
Mm.
moving your body, how would you go about beginning to think about looking at the body as a
Mm-hmm.
tool for mental wellness?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There's so many ways that we can go. Let's just keep it simple. So I think if you're talking about somebody that isn't training and is probably choosing to eat a lot of processed food, takeout food, there tends to be a cycle. Chocolate. We tend to use food as therapy. I know that you know that. So, and unfortunately, changing everything all at once is huge for people. It's too much. It's like a mountain, right? So like you don't just climb a mountain, right, to get to the top. You train and you take one step, 1 meter, 2 meters at a time. So with nutrition, with training and exercise, I would say you just start very, very small. Okay, so you start walking, join the gym, maybe do a class or two. Just do something that you enjoy doing. Do something you think you're going to enjoy doing. Buddy up with somebody so you have an accountability buddy, or work with a professional that knows what they're doing, and start slow. Really start slow, because your body won't be used to it, but you will feel the reward straight away. Absolutely. You'll feel great afterwards. As long as you don't go to a personal trainer that absolutely beasts you, you can't walk for 4 days afterwards, because that's only going to hinder your progress, right? You're going to think that that's how you need to feel. To begin with, you don't need to feel that at all. At some point, muscle soreness is awesome, right? DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, is something that happens and it's natural. But you don't want to not be able to walk the first time you train. The most important thing is to take it slowly, right? Start slow and then build from there, right? Have a plan for your week, your month, and then reevaluate and try and increase the intensity or increase the amount that you're doing each week or each month, right? And if you're not sure, reach out to a fitness professional, reach out to somebody who knows what they're doing. Make sure that you've checked their credentials and you know that they're actually very well qualified, okay? Reach out to somebody you know that's working out, or reach out to me, Jana. We'll help. We love to help people, like give them free advice, absolutely. But start small, because we always think we have to go big. And unfortunately, that can be counterproductive.
Absolutely. No, I think that is great advice, and has some cool, like very keystone pieces in it that I think picking something that you like to do or that you think you'll like to do.
Yeah.
So many times people, they're thinking like, oh, my friend, she got better doing running, so I have to run. And I find it's rarely the specific physical activity, and the research doesn't really support a specific physical activity for mental wellness that I've seen is better than a different one. And so do what you love, and if you're not sure what you love, try something.
Yeah.
Do something that you think you might like, and if you don't like it, try it again. Try something different. It doesn't have to be serious.
Oh.
Do you want to talk a little bit about like your philosophy on nutrition and how nutrition helps complement this work of building that physical fitness as a resource to have a healthy brain and have a healthy mood?
Keeping it simple again, trying to omit as much processed foods out of the diet, gluten, dairy. A lot of us have intolerances, and we don't know what our intolerances are because we have so many combinations of food going into our bodies. So something that you do, I know, and something that we do as well, are elimination diets, where you take out all of that crap, right? And then you just choose whole foods. Keep it very, very simple. Most people, in our experience, and we've worked with a lot of people, tend to like skip meals and snacks and then binge in the evenings because they're so hungry, right? And then when you're hungry, it's like going to the grocery store, right? When you go to the grocery store and you're hungry, you just pick all the rubbish off the, anything that you can get into your mouth as quickly as possible. So that tends to be how a lot of people live, right? We live in quadrant one, so we're like stress, moving from one appointment to the other, forget to eat, drink coffee. So I think just keeping it very simple, having a very simple plan, getting up in the morning, having your breakfast. If it's your shake, have a shake. If you can't stand breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner. Very, very simple. Portion it out. It doesn't have to be super complicated. You don't have to like cook for 6 hours every Sunday. Choose the things you enjoy eating. Don't choose the things you don't like. Find some great recipes that you can get excited by and you can share with the family or share with your loved one. We've got great recipes that are up on our website for free. We love them. We're really passionate about sharing how to eat healthy but also enjoy food. It doesn't have to be boring. It can be as boring as you want it to be. I mean, up to you if you want to eat broccoli, rice, and chicken every night, but I can't. Again, start slow, right? But omit as much processed foods and sugar out of your diet as possible. Take the pop out, replace it with a fizzy water. There's so many different strategies that you can use, but really just again, starting very, very simple. And if you need help with it, there's lots of resources online, but again, reach out to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Reach out to somebody like you, to us, because we can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. Yeah, no, I mean, it's such a pleasure to chat with someone who's on just like the completely same page when it comes to like where you need to start with these kind of things. Because I think so often when you get into talking about fitness, you can get into, there's so many specific diets out there that can work for individuals for certain things. But in terms of getting started, it really is that simple of just, like eating regularly, counting your vegetables, try and get more vegetables. I tend to go the displacement effect. So I don't actually ask people to take out the processed foods until a couple
Okay.
weeks in, because
All
I'm
right.
just like, let's just get more veggies in. And then you
Fair
check
enough.
back and you're like, oh, hang on a second, what happened to the processed food? But it's the same method, or
Yeah.
it's the same ends. It's just languaged differently to get there,
Sure.
because I think that's a joy is, different things work for
Yeah.
different people, right?
Yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
think when we use the term diet, and there's a real stigma attached to diet. So, and again, I know you probably don't use the word diet either. I think nutrition plan is key, because we should plan our nutrition, because we plan most things in our lives. So planning is the key when it comes to anything. When you're talking about exercise, or you're talking about nutrition, or you're talking about self-care, if you don't prioritize yourself in your schedule, your time, and this is a busy mum and as a busy professional, if you don't window yourself out some time, that time will be eaten up by somebody else, right? You'll put other things first, and then you'll be unhealthy. You won't have time to plan your food. You won't have time to plan when you're going to work out. You won't have time to plan when you're going to meditate. It'll just be something you mean to do, and then something you feel bad about not doing. So planning and nutrition, and a specific plan for individuals, I think is super important, because, we can sign up to an online nutritionist or whatever who gives you this cookie cutter plan, right? Or diet, we call it diet.
Hmm.
And it's not going to work for your body. It's not going to work for you, because it isn't specific to you, your lifestyle, and what you need, right? Someone like you or me will put together a specific plan for that person's lifestyle, maybe for their body type, maybe with their intolerances accounted for as well, for sure, right? So I think the word diet has definitely been thrown around too much, and I think there's a real stigma attached to diets, right?
For
Because they don't
sure.
work long term.
They don't. They
No.
don't. And especially depending on, when you talk about diet, meaning food restriction,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
looking at, just what that, as a goal of weight reduction, like that's just not effective. It doesn't, all the
But it
research
doesn't have
shows.
it doesn't have longevity. And what we're trying to teach people is strategies that will help you long term, not just a quick fix. Because unfortunately, with the rebound effect of a quick fix, that doesn't only affect your body, but it affects your it affects you mentally too. It affects your psyche, because then you have this whole, oh, I don't feel good. I've gone back to where I started again. I feel terrible. The internal voice starts coming again, and it's like, oh, but I should be able to keep this weight off. Da, da, da. But you haven't been given the right tools, right?
Been
You
set
need
up
to,
to fail.
yeah, 100%. Well, you've been set up to go back to them 6 months later, right? And
That
play
is,
again for something else.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. I was not thinking that cynically about the diet industry, and I should have been. So thank you
That's okay.
for
I mean,
that.
we deal with it like we deal with people that come through our doors that literally have been reluctant to contact us, even though they know that we do something different, right? We work with lifestyles, we work with longevity, sustainability, because been on so many diets, they've been to so many studios, and they've done the body transformation, or the quick fix, or the bikini diet, which is basically 800 calories for 3 months, train 2 times a day, and wonder why their metabolism's shot and they can't keep the weight off. And it's terrible, because you've been told that this is going to work, but actually it's just harming you, right? So, and they've been reluctant to come through our doors, because I don't think this is going to work for me, because I've never been able to find the best version of myself and keep that version, right?
Mm. What do you find in your studio, what else comes with when people start that physical transformation? Because I don't think for many people it's not actually about those physical goals. Like we think it's about that goal. It's like, I want to be, you're thinking, I want to be strong, I want to be fit,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. But like, that's not really what this is about, I don't think.
No,
What do you see?
it's got to be confidence, right? I think people want to feel confident in their own skin. They want to walk around with their head up. They want to feel, yeah, confident, and like role models. Like we deal with a lot of like leaders, like, or family heads of families, and you want to be a role model for your kids. You want to be a role model for your partner. You want to live longer. You want to live healthy. You want to be confident in your own skin. I think they're the real reasons that are motivating people generally, because everyone's specifically different. You do have people that come in, and when we do goal setting with them, and you set smart goals. It's like, I want to lose 40 pounds, but why? So you do the why, we do the why, what's one with exercise? Sorry, the why exercise, where it's like, okay, let's dig a bit deeper. There has to be an emotional connection to why you are sitting in front of me right now, because otherwise what happens is when it starts to get tough, which it will, right? Because it's not easy. Otherwise we wouldn't have a job. Be very, very simple. You just write somebody a script there, go and do that. That's great. You're done. You're going to be healthy for the rest of your life. No, it's not as simple as that. It's a process. We're changing routines that have been developed over time. So it's going to take time. There's going to be a point where your body and your mind are trying to get in the way, right? There's going to be resistance. So when you have that resistance and that moment of weakness, when we have that voice, what is it that you're going to remind yourself that you're doing this for, to stop you reaching for that thing that's got, is unhealthy, or to not train that day? What is the real emotional connection to why you want to be healthier? And that's what we have to dig deeper, because if it's just aesthetics, it's going to last a couple of months and then you're going to be back to where you started again. Because if it's just, I want to look good, that's not really going to get you where you need to get, right? It's not going to build that that tolerance, right? That belief.
Yeah, it's that deeper meaning.
Exactly.
I'm just going to say that if anybody is watching live right now that has questions, if you want to throw those in the chat box, I will check those, and we'll make sure that John has a chance to answer your questions, as well as all the things that I'm wondering about tonight. So I'll ask one more for B, and then I'll pop over and check the questions.
Of course.
Which is, I want to bring it back to this idea of masculinity and fitness. Okay. And how does, in your opinion, what's the relationship there between those two words? And how, because well, I'll just start with that. And then I wonder if there's, it seems to me like a double-edged sword, right? Like could be some really big benefits, and then there's also that negative side. So I'm curious where you see it.
Mm-hmm. Where am I going to go with this? There's so many ways we can go with this. Okay, masculinity and fitness. Like, I think for most dudes, when they lift something heavy, and it's not just dudes, but we're talking about dudes, right? So when they lift something heavy, they feel strong, right? You feel masculine when you're lifting something heavy. It is that way. I don't know whether we're pre-programmed that way. So when you're achieving something that's like, whether it's throwing a kettlebell around, whether it's like lifting more weight in a squat and building muscle, it's sort of self-fulfilling. When you see your body changing, and again, we're talking about aesthetics right now, mentally you feel more powerful. And I think most dudes feel that way. So when you look at the bodybuilding world, and I'm not from the bodybuilding world, it's sort of it's hard because these guys are huge, but they're also taking stuff that which affects their masculinity, right? Steroids can affect their masculinity. So there's a real fine line between like fitness and taking it too far, right? Trying to be too big, trying to be too strong, I think anyway. I think trying to find that balance. I'm struggling with this question, I have to be honest, with masculinity and fitness. I have to be honest.
No, but you're doing really well. I think we get into like, what does it mean to be a man? And like, how does fitness play into that? And that's exactly what you touched on with that, like that strength piece. And what I was alluding to earlier is that like, that can be healthy to a point. It could be motivating, it could be harnessed, and it can also be pushed way too far. If we're in two ways, if we're not able to meet those milestones we set for ourselves, like what does that mean for mental health? And then on the other hand, going so far into this, I have to be strong, that doesn't allow for the rest of a dynamic person that you are.
You're right. I think it can be all consuming as well. So when you talk about masculinity, we're talking about self-compassion, building relationships with others. I think we can become self-obsessed, right? Especially the bodybuilding world. I filmed a documentary. I did a show because I wanted to understand what the body and the psyche goes through. I did it naturally, and we filmed the good, the bad, and the ugly. We filmed everything. We took my bloods. We worked out what my body was doing during training, after training, to try and work out, one, was it healthy? Two, what was happening? It was all consuming. I had no time for anybody else. My relationships with others were totally destroyed. I had no empathy with anybody, because I had no energy. I had no real, no real purpose other than to get my training, manage to do my work, and sleep and eat. So I think you're right. It can go all the way over in one direction and become all consuming, and actually it affect every part of your life. So really, when you're talking about fitness and masculinity, it's finding a way that you can incorporate it into your life, so that it's giving you the serotonin, it's giving you that strength, but it isn't getting in the way of building relationships with people.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that answer. Thank you, John.
No worries. It took me a while to get there.
No, it's a tough topic, and that's why, I wanted to take some space this month to, really dig in and say, like, what do we mean here when we're talking about masculinity? What does that mean for fitness? Because I think so often it's easy to just make it superficial, and that's not serving anyone. Like, that's really not helping at all. I've just checked, and some lovely comments for you, John. So make sure to tag you so you can check them out later. But no questions for you
easy
from our live.
Keep making it easy for me, people. Still good.
Yeah. So I don't have any secret questions for you tonight. I guess I'll just say, if anybody is watching this and they are struggling with their mental health, maybe they have some anxiety, maybe they have some depression, do you have any words of encouragement that you would want to share with them?
Yeah, I mean, I own 2 businesses with my wife. Lucky enough to have 2 houses. Could never imagine being in this position. Like, I'm obviously meant to be here, but I didn't choose to be here. Every day I'm on this earth is a present that someone else gave me. So there is hope, but the most important thing is to talk, to try and understand what's happening. Reach out to me, reach out to Katie, reach out to somebody, anybody, and let them know that you're struggling. That's the first step. And yeah, I mean, there is light, try and find a purpose. It's easier said than done. Find something that you enjoy doing. Start moving your body. Start trying to eat healthy, or at least look for resources or find somebody who can help you, because it is powerful. Like, exercise and nutrition really did save my life. And then it was, what am I going to do with this, right? So if I can do it and I'm not even going to be here, then you can definitely do it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
All right. If it helps anybody, I think it's so powerful to share stories, and I think it's something that we all need to do more of, right? Show a little bit of more vulnerability, and in that, we learn a lot of lessons about ourselves, but other people as well, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, John, for taking the time tonight, and thank you all for joining us. And if you're catching the replay, for participating in this way. And if you have questions, leave them below. Tag me in them. We'll see if we can get those answered after the fact. And happy Movember. Next week we have Dr. K joining us. He is from Mind Shift. They are brain-based executive coaching, and he is going to be talking about mindset specifically, and mindful masculinity. So really building on some of the things that we talked about today with John. So if that's of interest to you, I hope you can join us next week, and have a great night, everybody.
That's awesome.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.